A late spring sun, losing some of its brilliance, is dropping low on the horizon. Purple haze begins to thicken in the timbered notches. Gray foothills, round and billowy, rolled down from the higher country. They are smooth, sweeping, with long velvety slopes and isolated patches of evergreens and new buds of various trees and brush glow in spring green. An uneven ridge slowly rise above with scattered trees and near bare branches above the valley, sheltering it from the north. A long black heavy carriage with 8-spoke wheels, 4 on each end, pulled by 10 horses, travels on the gravel road up the slope of the valley. The carriage is not alone, for a regiment of the Emperor's cavalry guard accompanies, placing the imperial carriage in the center of the formation. Several heavy baggage wagons follow as well. The pace is brisk and steady, and going up the slope seems to have no effect on the pace of the procession. It is after the crest of the valley's edge, where the road goes west into an open field, that the lead riders take notice of another formation heading their way. Another formation of riders had broken from the tree line and in a column of 2. These are more imperial troops sent out to meet the procession at an area prepared on the north side of the road. The procession turns north into a cleared field and the wagons circle, placing the carriage in the center. The wagons and horsemen form a circle around the carriage, and a footman places a step to the side and opens the door. Emperor John Gannon steps out wearing a long brown overcoat and is dressed casually. He turns and leans back into the carriage to say a few words to his stand-in that is dressed in a regal fashion. A moment later, a single horse buggy pulls up, and with that the Emperor sits next to the driver and is riding off towards the woodline with a smaller detachment of horsemen. Within mere minutes, the entourage of horses and wagons have departed back the way they came from. The Emperor's short buggy right into the woods brings him to another cleared area of a more permanent nature. This is the beginning of the technological zone, an area of the continent meant for only those of a certain mindset. Here is a transfer station and a few buildings, and a small military fort are present. Also, there is a railroad and small station with the Emperor's personal locomotive and train, flanked by his ever-present bodyguards. John Gannon dismounts the buggy and steps up to the small station platform, where he is greeted by a sharply dressed man in black coat and tails and top hat. The man is of a dark complexion with a short graying beard and a bit portly. Then, with a sweeping gesture and low bow, the Emperor's aide and friend greets his monarch. "Welcome back, Grand Highness, Emperor of all land and sea, protector of the weak, keeper of the truth, may the sun continue to rise to shine upon you." Emperor Gannon interrupts what might be a continued speech. "Stop it, Cadmel, it was not funny the first time, and it is still not funny." Cadmel stands straight and replaces his top hat. "But I am smiling, and looks like I am not alone." The Emperor glances back to catch one of his guards trying to conceal a grin. With a stern look, the soldier subdues himself. Cadmel changes his speech from the common spoken language to what is known as the imperial tongue. This is a language native to the Emperor, and regent it is only taught to a very few. It is a way to keep privacy and security without hiding a way to speak. "How was your trip? Not too exhausting, I hope?" Cadmel asks as he walks towards the waiting train, then steps aside to let his old friend and ruler pass. The Emperor climbs aboard the third car of his private train. Besides the locomotive and coal car, there is water tank car as well. This lessens the stops the train needs to make, especially through the mountains. The private sitting car is third, then there is the sleeper car, supply, dining, baggage, etc. A support train leads, which carries a detachment of soldiers as well as administrative staff. A third train follows with cars for horses, more guards and support. The luxury car is padded in burgundy and leather upholstery. It resembles a miniature version of the Emperor's private office with conference table and cushion seats. It is the long bench seat near a window that draws the attention of the old Emperor as he seats himself with a sigh. His trusted aide and friend stands near. "I know that look, you want to tell me something," John says as he looks out the window. "May I take your coat?" Cadmel asks. "In a minute, and I know what you want to say, and it is not about my coat," John replies tiredly. Cadmel nods yes, "We are having issues with the new territories and the actions of the High Command." John sighs. "Why do I bother having administrators and governors if I need to fix everything myself?" "Well, just don't stand there, have a seat," John says as he looks back to his friend. Cadmel takes the equally comfortable seat across from the Emperor, facing him. There is excessive abuse by the high command at the lower tiers. Murder, pillaging, enslavement. Local garrisons are not much better with skimming taxes, rape and extortion. Once given the authority, it does not take long for the primitives to slip into their old ways. You are telling me this because you have already figured out what to do and need my approval. John relies. Cadmel smiles, you know me well, and yes, anything with changes like this will need your decree. John sighs, if I am going to be putting my name to it, tell me what you got. Cadmel continues. First, restructuring the high command to more of a civilian oversight. Have individuals only report incidences of corruption up to higher. Then dispatch the needed officials from Tier 1 and Tier 2 areas to take care of the problems. Implement training for local police and constables and a vetting processes to find rated stable men for those positions. One more thing, we need more literate people to take on administrative tasks. I propose increasing more recruitment among the Muna people of the Southern Sea to include more women as well. Also the creation of a uniformed women's branch to take on mundane tasks to free more men for other positions. John nods, very well, is there anything else, and do you have any good news for me? Cadmel thinks a moment. Yes, there is. A year ago 1,000 subsistence farmers were relocated from a conquered territory to a high-tier agricultural area. They had rated high for being stable, so everyone was moved. Now there are no regrets, they took well to basic agricultural industrialization. There is even a school now providing basic literacy to both the boys and girls with little protest. They went from barely surviving to being able to feed tens of thousands. While on that subject, imperial-wide there is enough food produced within the industrial agriculture zones that no one in the empire may never go hungry again, as long as the food too can properly distributed. Now those are the things I like to hear about. Why doesn't anyone tell me of the good things that happen? It was in the paper last month. John sighs. You can take my coat now, and while you are up, get me something to drink. Bells ring, the steam whistle blows, and the locomotive begins to move.
Torches recently lit light the way to a large iron and wood door. The old door stands strong despite years of neglect. Within the long ancient stone corridor covered in soot stood the personal bodyguards of the Emperor of Malora, along with the smaller detachments of other bodyguards of the dignitaries on the other side of the old door. Gathered within the chamber are members of the upper royal families of the regent and the emperor. The meeting was called in haste, and all that should be present are not currently there. The emperor in his regal robes stand tall, with his wavy white hair reflecting in torchlight. Despite his great age, he carries himself in the manner of a man half his age. The emperor moves forward and clears his throat before speaking. I see that everyone that was within reasonable distance has arrived. I will brief the others that are not present when I continue my inspection tour. What I need to tell you is of the critical nature and needs to be addressed immediately, the emperor explains. Within the pause of the emperor's sentence, a tall young man with black hair wearing fine clothes interjects a question. What can be so important that we must meet in this wretched place for this impromptu family gathering? Roger, sit down and be quiet. Do not interrupt, the emperor says with a snap. There are no chairs, father, Roger replies in a cool manner of a child feigning innocence of what was truly meant. The emperor ignores his errant son and tries to continue, but is interrupted again. Security, obviously. How many times has someone tried to kill you today, Roger? The comment comes from the young man with short brown hair and uniform standing across the table from the emperor's oldest son. The sarcastic flair of the comment is very obvious. None, Antonio, is the short reply Roger gives with no further comment. The day is not over. The words come from a tall, raven-haired young woman, are spoken as casually as one would reply to the condition of the weather. Maria! The emperor pulls her attention to the head of the table. I apologize, Uncle John. Forgive me. Enough of this petty family squabbling. The next one that speaks out of turn will be demoted and sent to the most forsaken place I can find, the emperor explains, then receives a round of apologies from all those present. The emperor continues. There has been another breach, and before you ask, it is not like the past breaches in the barrier. This has been the largest incursion to date. Many soldiers were lost before the barrier resealed. This information was purposely withheld so as not to affect morale along the front. But in nearly the full minute the hole in the barrier existed, dozens of those monsters made their way through. Fortunately, a battalion was in close proximity and were able to contain the creatures before they made it past the containment zone. Unfortunately, many soldiers were injured. 212 soldiers were killed, the Emperor says. There's a reserved silence in the room and a small gasp before the Emperor continues. Now more to the point of why you are gathered here. The timetable of modernization and integration is going to be pushed ahead. About time, the Emperor's eldest son explains. Roger, is all the Emperor needs to say to quell his son's enthusiasm. The Emperor continues. Currently, we do not have enough soldiers to cover the full length of the barrier, and even if we did, it is doubtful that with the resources at hand and men alone would be able to repulse a full confrontation for very long. Also, we have new information from a successful aerial reconnaissance. The Emperor lifts open a folder from the stone table and begins to pass around grainy black and white photographs. The woman known as Maria holds up a photo passed to her. The quality is better. I see the exposure rate has improved. The Emperor continues. Look closely at these structures and formations. We now know for certain the plateau is inhabited by even more of those creatures. As to why these things have never tried to come down from the plateau is unknown. But as to why the creatures that are frozen in behind the barrier at the foot of the plateau break free, we now have a certain answer. The woman known as Maria speaks up. Forgive my interruption, Uncle John. May I continue? The Emperor nods his head in agreement. Very well. Since you were the one to provide that bit of information, the Emperor replies as he slightly steps back from the table. Maria steps forward and leans closer into the light over the old stone slab. The energies that the world knows as magic is what supports what we call the barrier, is what locks the multitudes of creatures in time. Those particular energies are nearing depletion. This is something we had speculated ever since the first breaches occurred years ago. Since then, a great expense and resource has been expended to prevent those things from ravaging our continent. But why is this barrier failing now? And is there anything we can do to restore it has been a question we are unsure of. I do believe I have those answers. The device that sustains the barrier is nearing depletion and needs to be replaced. I know what needs to be replaced, but as to where to find the replacement, that is the challenge. Enough, the Emperor interrupts. I know where this is leading to. Despite what the regent, your father, my friend and colleague says now, it was agreed upon years ago that if a way back was found, we would never go back. The evils of that place, if they were to return here, would devastate the life for all of Tellus. Restoring the barrier is an option, but not at that cost of crossing that expanse, if even possible, and risk contamination. So that option is off the table. On that, Maria, you are now assigned as overseer of magical integration and acquisition. We need to see that research stays on track and free of corruption. Roger, you are now granted greater authority over the Ministry of Culture and Education. Find ways acceptable to integrate the primitives to accept higher technology and its civilized behavior. Antonio, you are being promoted to general. This will make you the youngest officer of that grade, so you will face resistance of those few superiors. However, you will be outside the Field Marshal's chain of command. Your assignment is of the most importance. You need to find ways to bolster the containment lines, increase the size of the military, free up more fighting men to support the containment zone. I will inform the others of their new duties as I meet them in person. There's a quiet from the right of the Emperor, and a small form steps from the shadows. With spectacles and wearing a long wool coat and plain mousy hair, she appears perhaps to be a servant. The Emperor looks to his side. Yes, I have also assigned my daughter, the Princess Nancy, to oversee Project Diesel. There is a quick whisper between Roger and Antonio that does not go unnoticed. Is there a problem, gentlemen? Because if there is, I will not hear of it, says the Emperor. Nancy has shown the greatest aptitude and interest in science and technology. She had studied all my original notes and all the recent discoveries of her researchers, where the both of you have shown little interest and decided to pursue other areas. Nancy will not be leading the team, but will be coordinating combined efforts from all relevant industries. Until we can understand why electricity will not work further than at arm's reach, we must pursue other types of power technology. Steam power by itself can only carry us so far. Now that you all understand your assignments, there should not be any questions on your task. The Emperor leans back and gathers himself for a moment in a more relaxed tone. It has been some time since we have gotten together. How have you been? The Emperor began and asked aloud in a friendly tone.
That was the end of chapter 2.5.